Hi everyone. So for this week, we're talking about counseling and victims of domestic violence. And my initial thoughts when thinking about counseling a victim of domestic violence is just really honing in on that huge empathy piece, being able to put yourself in the position of that person and understand that it might not be that easy to just walk away or to just say no and not be a part of that cycle of abuse anymore, because it's never necessarily an easy thing to do to walk away from a situation where you might not be safe or comfortable in the setting, especially when you're in danger or your life is in danger. So I think it would be especially difficult counseling victims of domestic violence that were of a young age, just because it's not necessarily easy to think of someone who could be the age of like your daughter or your sister or your brother or your son going through something like that, being abused in that way. I think that would be especially hard for me, knowing that I have a younger brother, and to think of someone hurting him or like hitting him or calling him names or any other type of abuse. I know that it would drive me insane. I would do everything in my power to help my brother, but knowing that sometimes victims don't necessarily see that they're being abused, or it might not be safe enough for them to leave the abuse situation, that would be really difficult for me, I think, considering how often these things happen, and I don't know if I'd be able to separate that like anger I would have against the abuser. I feel like that would be the most difficult part. And then for the second prompt, how can we as counselors educate ourselves on the prevalence of violence against males? I think that's really just relying heavily on the literature, understanding the statistics behind domestic abuse, and recognizing the signs, knowing what it looks like, comparing males to females or different sexualities, because abuse in one situation might not look like abuse in another situation. So just being aware of all the different types and what it can look like from a female abuser's perspective or a male on a male abuser's perspective, and just being aware that these things can happen at any time and it's much more common than you think. So to always have your eyes open and not discredit anything that they say, or just think like, oh, boys will be boys or girls will be girls, because that's never an excuse. And then for the last prompt, what other questions do I have? I guess considering how prevalent domestic violence is in different settings, I would just be curious to see what domestic violence looks like in different for different sexualities. So like within the LGBTQ community, is it more or less prevalent between same-sex couples, or is it not? And what does it look like? Is it any different for same-sex couples than it is for different genders or different sexualities? So those are my thoughts. Thanks.